Hello everyone, it's Laura here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I'm gonna show you how to make a fun Halloween card using the My Favorite Things Fab-BOO-lous Friends stamp sets, as well as stencils and dies from MFT and Ariel. To start off this card, I cut two panels out of some Bristol Smooth cardstock by Strathmore using the Ariel Wonky Stitches dies as well as the My Favorite Things Triple Peekaboo Window die. All the supplies will be listed in my blog post, which should be linked down below. I stamped some of the images from the MFT Fab-BOO-lous Friends stamp set on some Nina Solar White cardstock using Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and now I'm coloring them in with my Spectrum Noir markers. Unfortunately, this time I forgot to put the caps upside down on my table, so I cannot tell you exactly which colors I used. But I can tell you that for the mummy I used the warm gray, so the BG family. For the bat I used the green gray, so the GC family in the Spectrum Noir marker series. And for the witch I used the CG colors, as you can see right here. And I am keeping the shading pretty easy, pretty simple. I am shading everything as if the light source comes from the center, so right in, straight on, so that the shadows will be on the sides of the images and the centers will be the lightest part of the image. And let me tell you guys, this card was really a struggle for me. I like the result, but there was a mistake or something that didn't go as planned pretty much at any step of this card, of the card making process. So I thought it might be useful to show this to you and to share how I kind of went about these mistakes and how I fixed them or hid them, so that this might help you if you find yourself in the same situation. Because honestly, I think there is always a way, or almost always a way, to recover a project. And even if that's not the case, even if it ends up being in a way you don't like, it's still an opportunity for learning. So I don't know, I thought I would use this video as an encouragement for you to bring your projects to the end. And please do let me know in the comments below if you found this video useful. I would really like to hear your feedback. Once I was done with the coloring, I moved on to my frontal panel. I am using a stencil by My Favorite Things. I believe this is called the English Brick Wall stencil, and I taped down my panel to the stencil so that it wouldn't move when I go ahead and start adding color. I am using Distress ink in Iced Spruce, and I am going over the whole area with dabbing motions. So I am dabbing and twisting a little bit the blender in those areas where I have a bit too much of a harsh line. But I'm not sliding the blender because I don't want to shift the stencil. And here's the first thing that did not quite go as planned. You will see it in a moment when I remove the panel from the stencil. There you go, you have some missing bricks on the sides, and I did not pay attention when I put the stencil over my panel, but that's not the look I was going for. I wanted it to be fully covered, so I thought I would go ahead and add some extra color to the sides, but I first decided to leave it alone and leave it to dry a little bit because Distress inks blend really smoothly on Bristol Smooth cardstock, but they also take a minute to dry, so I wanted to make sure I wouldn't smudge it. So I went ahead and I marked the position of that frontal panel on my background, and I came in with this MFT cloud stencil to create some clouds, again with Distress inks, and this time in Seedless Preserves. And in a minute you will see me make the second mistake, because I started too high, so I put my first cloud too high up, so there was a lot of white space between that cloud and the part where I have my front panel. So I came in right now and added another cloud shape, but there was a little bit of an overlap, so you can see it kind of looks weird and there is too much white space, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I just came back in with the blender just like this. So on top of this weird cloud shape, I have a giant splotch, which, it got me a little bit frustrated, but I decided to just put this aside and not worry about it at that time. And I moved on to another element. So I took the circle die cuts that were left over from cutting the frontal panel, and I'm adding wild honey to them. I initially planned to do this directly on the background panel where I have the clouds, but because of all the mess ups and, I knew it wasn't my day. I knew like things were gonna go wrong, so I went for the safest option because I was afraid I would overlap the wild honey with the seedless preserves that was already on my background. So again, I decided to play it safe. So at this point, my front panel was dry and I tried to fix up those areas that were left empty from before. But obviously, because in the adjacent areas I already had distressing, those areas are now darker. And I don't know why I was not expecting it. I didn't think about it. I don't know. I think I was just a little bit too kind of frustrated by everything that was going wrong. And I was kind of a little bit frantically, to be honest, trying to fix everything. So anyway, I looked at it for a second and I thought, but this doesn't look bad. So I decided to embrace it. And I added a few more spots of darker distressing here and there on this front panel. And I think this actually added quite a bit of interest to it. Now I am just gluing these circle panels to my background, and I moved this one to the bottom because it's the one with the stitching detail, so that had to match. Otherwise, it wouldn't matter which is where. And I taped down my front panel with some washi tape on my background to make sure I placed everything where it was supposed to go. And now I'm backing this front panel with some fun foam tape for some added dimension. I also decided that I wanted a little bit more contrast in my sky, so I came back with that same cloud stencil and the seedless preserves, and I'm adding a little bit more ink. And I made the same mistake as before, because I started with a cloud that is high up instead of starting low. So you will see I'm trying now not to go back, to do exactly the same thing, like to overlap two clouds in a way that they're not supposed to. And in trying to do so, while also trying to avoid adding ink to the orange panels that I had already stuck down, I created a giant splotch in the middle of my card, as you can probably see. But, I was so far into the card making process that I really didn't want to give up, so I kept going. I finished adding clouds, and I stamped my sentiment, the Ghostly Greeting sentiment, with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. This is also from the Fab-BOO-lous Friends stamp set, and I'm also adding some more interest to these orange panels using, again, another stamp in this same set, and doing some tone-on-tone stamping with Distress ink in Wild Honey. And here I'm trying to come up with a way of fixing that giant splotch, and I thought that if I stamp one of the bats in black ink over the edge of the splotch, it would kind of hide it. So that's what I'm doing right now. I inked it up with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I am stamping it on some scrap paper because I had never used this, so I was sort of trying to condition the stamp. And I went ahead and stamped it, and it worked because I don't think that you can really tell that there was a splotch. But here comes the next mistake, because I was trying to find a placement for the third bat, and I decided to put it here next to these two, but I stamped it too low. So it's almost completely covered by this front panel, but not quite. So you just have this little black spot just popping out, which makes no sense. So I'm trying to see if I can cover it up with some images. I'm also bringing in this tombstone in a desperate attempt to salvage this card after all this work. So I thought I would stamp another bat on top of this one, but I would change the orientation a little bit so that the wing of the new bat would cover up the part of the wing of the previous bat that sticks out. And I was a little bit nervous because I knew I had one shot at this basically, but luckily it worked. There was just a little bit of a ragged edge, which I fixed with a black pen. And then once I adhere this front panel, you cannot see the first bat I stamped. And yeah, the mistake is hidden, so we can go on and finish off the card and call it a day. The final steps are now to adhere the images on top of these circle windows. And I'm doing it by using liquid glue and some 3M foam tape, and to mount this on a black A2 card base. And then the card is over. So despite all the mistakes and all the things that went wrong, I managed to get the card I'm happy with. And I thought that by sharing this whole process with you guys, I might help someone, not to feel too discouraged when things go wrong, because, it can get frustrating, let's be honest. But in most of the cases, you can recover from your mistakes. And that's it. That's my card for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and you found it useful. If so, please let me know in the comments below, leave this video a thumbs up, and consider subscribing to my channel. You can visit my blog for the full list of supplies, and I hope I'll be back soon with another video. Ciao!